In a way, the Nazis were the foremost white supremacists in history. Certainly not the first, but their atrocities in the 20th century have made them the most memorable. Racist and racialist ideologies were a driving force behind most of the atrocities perpetrated by the Nazis. European Jews were earmarked for annihilation, with 6 million of them eventually being killed by the Nazi war machine. So were the Romani, Slavs, and homosexuals. But there's one other group which was also a victim of Nazi brutality. A group that very little is known of their suffering under the Nazi regime. Germany prior to the Second World War had contact with African peoples, some from their German colonies in Africa. Black sailors, servants, students, and entertainers from German colonies in present-day Cameroon, Togo, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, and Namibia all came to Germany in that period. Once World War I broke out, some of these Africans fought for the Germans. Germans also had contacts with other black people as part of African colonial forces deployed by the French in World War I to police the Rhineland. Some of these African soldiers had relations with German women, which resulted in children. Children who would later be made to go through some horrendous and horrific experiences for no other reason than having one black parent. During the Nazi regime, there were about 24,000 black people living in Germany. Given Nazi racial ideology, one could take a guess as to how Germany treated its black population. At first, there was no coherent policy towards black Germans, possibly due to the fact that their population was too small to be of any significance. But despite this lack of a coordinated offensive policy against Africans in Germany, life was not any better for black Germans. Black Germans experienced discrimination in employment, welfare, and housing, and were also barred from pursuing higher education. They were socially isolated and forbidden to have sexual relations and marriages with Aryans by the racial laws. Black people were placed at the bottom of the racial scale of non-Aryans along with Jews, Slavs, and Romani people. Black people were also subject to the Nuremberg laws under a supplementary decree. Even before World War II, Germany struggled with the idea of mixed-race German African citizens. While interracial marriage was legal under German law at the time, beginning in 1890, some colonial officials started refusing to register them, using eugenics arguments about the supposed inferiority of mixed-race children to support their decision. By 1912, this had become official policy in many German colonies, and a debate in the right that over the legality of the interracial marriage bans ensued. A major concern brought up in the debate was that mixed-race children born in such marriages would have German citizenship, and could therefore return to Germany with the same rights to vote, serve in the military, and could also hold public office as full-blooded ethnic Germans. Hitler hated the children of mixed-race unions. He viewed them as a contamination of the white race, an occurrence which he blamed on the Jews, seeing it as a Jewish plot to bastardize the white race by reducing its cultural and political value so that the Jew could dominate the white race. With this sentiment in mind, Hitler had his own sinister plans for the children of such unions. By 1937, mixed-race children in the Rhineland were approaching adulthood. This became a worry for Adolf Hitler and his minions. Soon, these mixed-race children would start reproducing, and most likely with German women, further corrupting the gene pool in Hitler's mind. Hitler resolved to never let that happen. Even though these mixed-race children were very minuscule in number, just about 400 to 600 of them were born at that time, their existence was enough to trigger Hitler's racist paranoia. Hitler thus commissioned the Gestapo to carry out forced sterilizations of these mixed-race children. About 500 of these children, the vast majority, were forced to undergo this painful procedure, often without anesthesia. Some survivors of this horror have detailed their experiences. Nazi Germany wasn't known for playing by the rules of war engagement or treating prisoners of war favorably. Even at that, black prisoners of war got the worst treatment at the hands of German soldiers. Black prisoners of war, mostly from French North Africa, West Africa and American forces, were usually separated for summary execution on the initiative of some German commanders. Of those not killed, they were often segregated from white prisoners of war, where they were subjected to much more inhumane conditions than their white counterparts. As the war drew to a close, conditions of these black prisoners of war deteriorated even more, and roughly half of the captured French colonial forces did not survive captivity. Before the Second World War, to justify their poor treatment of blacks in Germany, the Nazis carried out a propaganda campaign depicting African colonial soldiers in the Rhine as uncivilized sexual predators who raped innocent German women. This was referred to as Black Horror on the Rhine. In reality though, local opinions of these black soldiers were very different, and they were described as courteous and were quite popular, possibly because they harbored less ill will towards the Germans as the French did. Throughout history, the African has always been at the receiving end of brutality, dehumanization, slavery, and torture, mostly as a result of the color of his skin. The Nazis were no different in this regard. Bob Marley's famous lyrics in the song, War, states, until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior, is finally, and permanently, discredited and abandoned. Until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, there is a war, but until the day, the dream of lasting peace, world citizenship, rule of international morality, would remain but a fleeting illusion, to be pursued, but never obtained. Thanks for watching.